live. There we go, everybody. How's it going? Miguel Rodriguez here for the Bakersfield Gentlemen on the third podcast of the week. And we have a very good treat for you today. It's a week full of incredible guests, and it just gets better and better. I've been looking forward to talking to this guy since we got a chance to meet at PCA. One of the most professional people I've got to meet in the industry in quite a while. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of very professional people in this industry. So I think you're going to get a kick out of this. You're going to get some good questions answered. So do me a favor and have questions ready to go. Even if you're thinking of them on the fly, you think, oh, no, they don't want to answer that. We want to answer those, all right? I'm sure he does too, because we have Alec Cuevas on board today from Casa Cuevas talking about not just the brand in general, but his first cigar on the market in the what do you call it, portfolio, if you will.
Yeah, the Sangre Nuevo. Now here's the thing, guys. They did send them to us to try on the show, but because it's his first cigar, I want to do it properly. I want to give him a full review.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna smoke the Casa Cuevas Habano, which is their red label. But when we were pulling them out of the cello, the bands kind of stuck in there, which happens. It happens every once in a while. No big deal. No big deal. So we're gonna smoke the Habano today. We do also have the Maduro in the Connecticut. We'll probably smoke and maybe do a review on later on.
Yeah.
But we do want to give the Sangre Nuevo its own proper review. So we're going to save that one for later because as much as I'd like to smoke with him right now on the show, I think because it is his first cigar out there, that's a milestone right there. That's an amazing feat to get your first cigar out there. I want to give it the proper full review. So we'll do a recording on that later. And we'll have that out for you guys over on YouTube.
Yeah, but other than that, guys, remember, check out the sponsor in the description. It's Cigar Heritage Festival, which we can touch on that too in a little bit. But right now, 24 seconds is all that's separating us from this interview. So, guys, watch that intro video. Do us a favor and share it if you can. Get the word out there because it's going to be a good one. And we'll see you right after this. Over, and you know what, we really do need to make that longer because there's not enough time to share. But before we introduce our great guest today, Robert, Goody, Tyler, Dean, Tom, and everybody else watching in the comments, thank you so much for joining us. Jorge, how you doing? Alec, thank you so much for bearing with us this day because we've been so friggin' busy. Thank you for holding out for us.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me on the show. Much appreciated.
Glad to have you. See, it looks like you're in a nice spot, nice and sunny out there. Where are you at right now?
Currently Miami. So the family, all of the family, better said, or the majority, is stationed right here in Miami. This is the location where we have our main distribution center. And then for those of you that don't know, we have our factory in the DR. So the only family member that's not here currently is my grandfather. So.
Okay. Now, just on a personal note, real quick, I mean, it's got to be nice to be close to the family, just in general, right? I mean, we live pretty close to ours. I think we're like 2 hours away from most everybody. How does that feel? Does that keep the family pretty tight together when you're close together, right?
Oh, yes. We're so close that my grandmother, so she was initially with my grandfather in the DR, and after the whole COVID thing and everything else, she came down to Miami, and she's been here ever since. She's literally a block down the road. I mean, she's super close to home, so should anything ever happen, I mean, we're able to show up immediately.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's important to be close to family like that. And I've been further away, I think the furthest I've been is like one state away for a while. That's about as well. But I miss them almost immediately. So it's so nice to have that closeness. That closeness is just really important. I think that's awesome. And
definitely.
Really, Tyler's already on it. He said, how is it going, Alex? Ready for you all to come back and see us in Kansas. Oh, very nice.
Doing, brother?
Very
How you
cool.
doing? Thank you for chiming in. That's awesome.
That's what I like to see.
He's a great guy.
Let's jump right into it. Sangre Nuevo. That is your very first release under your family's banner. How does that feel?
Mm-hmm. I'll be completely honest with you guys, and I mentioned the same thing over at PCA a plethora of times. Nerve-wracking. I'll be truthful. To a T, especially during the blending process, I have the utmost respect for my fellow manufacturers and brand owners when it comes to creating a blend because I'll be honest with you guys. I mean, hell, it's not easy. You're hitting a demographic of, let's say, 6 to 8 people you genuinely trust in terms of their palate, and now you have to market it out all across the states. I mean, it's been a hell of a process. I'm extremely happy with how the blend came out, and truth be told, I owe that all to my grandfather and my father. True, I mean, at the end of the day, they sat me down. My grandfather gave me, I'll never forget this. He gave me a blank sheet of paper, and I asked him what it was for. It was early morning, and he says, "Well, it's now your time. The time has finally come for you to actually start creating your own blend." And I took it as a joke at first, up until a couple of days later, where he says, "So what are we doing? Where's this going?" It's like, "Oh, you're serious?" And that's when I started to sweat in Spanish, for lack of a better term. um, but all in all, extremely, extremely happy with the newest product we have out, and something that we take a lot of pride in is whenever we do end up releasing cigars, because we have the factory, we don't like to oversaturate the market. We like for everything to kind of catch its own legs beforehand and have the individual's feedback come full force, at least within that year, just to see what we can do in terms of tweaking, in terms of fixing the construction here and there, whatever it takes. So in this instance, I've always been a sucker for Cameroon, always. African Cameroon and me go very, very well. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get my hands on African Cameroon, but I found the next best thing, which was Ecuadorian Cameroon. And that is, I fell in love with it. Really, really bitter, earthy tones. Works great with coffee at that to boot. And then that was essentially the baseline for the rest of the project. All in all, I'd say it's a very full flavored stick, and one that we had a huge amount of time and fun actually blending.
Now, you mentioned you wanted to get African Cameroon unavailable, so you go, like you said, the next best thing, Ecuadorian Cameroon. Was that the central point that you wanted to focus on? Was the Cameroon wrapper, or was there a particular flavor profile that you were going with that you knew that the Cameroon would actually highlight?
So, and that's interesting. So you're one of the very first individuals to ask me that. I initially wanted something on the stronger side of things, because in relation towards our cigars, you can find them to be very, very well balanced. They have a lot of nuance and a hell of a lot of flavor to them. But at the end of the day, there's no chest kickers found within our lines. I think the biggest quote unquote chest kicker, medium plus even to full, would be the Patrimonio. So the one with the white band. And even then, it's a creeper. It kind of picks up towards that last third with the strength. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was going for initially. And then I thought Cameroon would be a perfect fit in relation to that, and maybe amping up with Pennsylvania broadleaf, maybe some ligero, just to see where the strength would take it. And during that process, I came to the understanding that, holy hell, this carries just a lot of flavor. And I decided to kind of get away from the strength profiling. It's still in there. It's a medium to medium plus bodied smoke, but I decided to focus full and foremost on the flavor itself. And the rest is history. That's really why I wanted to go with Ecuadorian Cameroon. Those notes that it really provides you is slightly less bitter than African Cameroon, in my opinion. But holy hell, I mean, it really accentuates what you put in terms of the filler and the binder tremendously, as a matter of fact.
Now, when it came time to pick a binder, you had a few different options already laid out, and then how did you go about picking it? Did you have a bunch of filler all ready to go and kind of smoke it without the wrapper? Because there's a lot of people that don't understand the process or don't know the process of blending a cigar. So if you want to tell us how you went about it.
Of course. So you're right. So we did have some binders kind of set out already. Our huge favorite of ours is using Ecuadorian Habano binder, mostly because it adds that little extra oomph of spiciness, that little peppery note in the back of the retrohale. And we genuinely love that, because we also came to the understanding that it leaves a very clean break on your palate. However, during the baseline of this project, there were 4 cigars created, all of which the filler at this point in time, it's kind of difficult to remember. It was Dominican, Nicaraguan, and there were 2 others in particular. We stayed away from Colombian, which has a little bit of a sweet tone to it, because like I said, I wanted to go for something with strength. And during that process, out of those 4 cigars, blend number 3 stood out the most to me. And blend number 3 had a Corojo binder. So interestingly enough. And Corojo is something brand new. We've added it towards our line in relation towards last year's launch with Patrimonio. That was our first time using Corojo from Honduras. But during that same process of picking up the wrapper, we also picked up a hefty amount of binder. We just didn't know really what to use it for. And lo and behold, that's currently for this baby. Nice. We're now using it for Sangre Nueva. Yes. So that's
It
how
just
that
kind
whole
of works out that way sometimes, where the
oh
stars
yeah,
just align to make something really wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that kind of describes the entire Casa Cuevas line. There's wonderful to be found throughout the entire thing. So when you explained to us when we were at PCA about the cigar, I already knew like, you could be nervous. I'm not nervous for you though, because I knew you're gonna hit it out of the park. There's not a doubt in my mind that people aren't gonna enjoy this cigar. But I definitely appreciate you admitting like, it's nerve wracking because you're not doing something right if you're not a little bit nervous about how you're going about it, I think. And
definitely,
I
definitely.
know I'm so sorry, Archie, real quick, because he's asking questions, and everybody, I apologize, I'm not getting to you guys. I'm gonna go with their questions first. I have some too, but I'm gonna go with the audience first. Sorry, guys.
Right
Which
on.
process is more important, the blending, construction, or the marketing of the cigar? That's a pretty dang good question.
That is. I'd say the marketing of the cigars stays at the very end of those three options in particular. In between the blending and the construction, I think the construction carries the most weight. And the reason being is because blending wise, at the end of the day, everybody has very, very distinct palates, some of which are phenomenal in relation towards I can smoke just about everything, and others are relatively peculiar about what they pick up. But when it comes to the construction, that's the scary part. Because, for example, in relation to a special little ingredient that we add inside the filler, we currently have specific guys now that are on a completely separate segmented team who will literally pull out a little strip of this specific tobacco to give to the blenders. If it wasn't for that process, this cigar would be all over the place in relation to its flavor. So construction is extremely, extremely important. You want to make sure it's burning properly. You want to make sure at the end of the day that you're not cutting it and it's unraveling right off the bat. I think construction is key because at the end of the day, it fits both palates, manufacturer and consumer wise. At the end of the day, if a consumer complains about the construction of the cigar, then that's on a manufacturer. And if we catch it at the factory, that's still on us nonetheless.
Yeah, that's a
Makes
great way to put it.
sense.
'Cause, I mean, you could have the perfect cigar, the cigar everybody loves, but if that thing isn't gonna burn right, if it's gonna tunnel, if it's not gonna stay lit, no one's ever gonna taste it. So
Yeah,
I think you hit the nail on the head with that one right there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then the marketing is definitely important too, Archie. It's just the cigar's the star. I mean, you can market the heck out of the pet rock. Yeah, it's gonna sell, but it doesn't make it a good product. Oh,
my
Pet
father
Rock
used to
is
have a pet
awesome.
rock. That's funny.
it's the first thing that came to mind. I was like, well, I don't need one of these, but people bought a hell of a lot of them. But
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
marketing is obviously really important. But
Yeah,
if you have something wonderful, I mean, it will speak for itself.
Very true. Very
that's
true.
it's very it's I think it's true to have a notion where if your marketing is top tier, very top notch, and you find yourself marketing to international individuals, people here in the states, domestically, all across the globe, if the product itself, construction wise, is horrendous, then even though you're seeing those billboards everywhere, let's say, or those advertisements or social media posts or whatnot, at the end of the day, you know the real deal, and you might not go back to that cigar regardless.
Hundred
So
percent.
Yeah.
yeah, marketing is crucial, 100%, but the cigar has to stand on its own 2 feet regardless.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So getting back to your cigar, um, and I do want to call it your cigar so everybody knows this is your first cigar under the Casa Cuevas banner. Uh, Sangre Nuevo, New Blood. How did you land on that name?
So throughout this industry, for those of you that know and actually don't know, I'm relatively young. I mean, you can just see it on my face. I barely even have a beard at this point.
It'll
I'm
come.
all of I'm all of 23 years old, and I've been working at least with my father in relation to the brand for as of now 5 years. The company's been around for 5 years, but he's been manufacturing with my grandfather for a hell of a lot longer. And that being said, coming into the frame, coming to understand how being a brand owner works, I would always go with my father traveling. And with that, we have a lot of solid brokers that would always call me Young Buck, New Blood, Young Blood, this, that, and the third. I was the youngest in the room at all times. So granted, I was always the one that getting picked on the most, and I'm okay with that. At the end of the day, everybody likes to shoot their crap, so to speak, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, but we were sitting down, my father and I, having lunch. We just finished getting off actually another podcast in particular, in which a lot of the individuals on there were saying you should come out with your own. And all jokes aside, my father says, I think it's about time. This was before my grandfather handed me the sheet of paper. He says, but first we need a name. The initial name of the cigar was going to be Sangre Joven. but Sangue Joven sounds German, and we have Cuban roots, so it just wasn't going to work.
I
It really
can't
wasn't.
feel it.
Yeah. So I thought of the next best thing, which in this case was Youngblood. Corey Frisbee up in the Midwest calls me that. A lot of shop owners call me that. A lot of consumers, and I used to work on the retail side of things. They would also call me Young Buck as well. Mostly because I had a fairly decent knowledge about cigars for one, but two, seeing somebody I guess so young with that educational background is not something too common these days.
It's true. Very true. And I do like the fact that the family knew you're ready. You got this. The amount of support and what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word? Confidence they had in you to say, you know what, it's time to put your name and your spin on something. That's awesome to see. And as a generational thing that builds into such a great industry because there's so much tradition here. Uh, but we come from the outside of it. We got into this as enthusiasts and learning from studying everybody else and talking to reps and owners. It's wonderful to see those families do their thing. It's
Yeah,
it's it's almost like what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like seeing a good sports dynasty, form their roots and take on
I
things
like
that you've never experienced before.
Yeah.
And it allows me to kind of cheer from the sidelines and then to be a part of it and to get to talk to you like this. It makes me happy to get to do this kind of stuff. I don't know. It's a little bit of fanboy situation, but you know what? It's the truth. I'm gonna
that.
stick with it.
Even then, even being a brand owner, I'm still a huge fanboy for every other new cigar that comes out. I'm an avid smoker. I love boutique stuff. I love regular core line premium top shelf stuff as well. I'm a smoker at the end of the day, and that's why I'm very honest to a T. I think that's why my parent, or rather, better said, my father, knew that I was kind of ready for it. Was because at a certain point in time, I came to the understanding that well, it's better to be honest about your products. We're just essentially just a cigar family. We're cigar enthusiasts ourselves. That's how we initially jumped into this. And though we were initially cultivators, that ended up becoming into manufacturing and now brand. My father's always wanted to start up the brands. He just didn't know that he'd have me alongside him helping. And I think he takes that with a lot of stride, and so do I for the opportunity.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you did mention that you like to smoke other stuff. Is there anything in particular that you enjoy that's out there right now?
So, in relation to some of the newer stuff, sadly, I was strapped at the booth, so I wasn't able to go around and have my pickings, so to speak. And to my knowledge, in terms of the newer stuff that's come in, a lot of it, I believe, is coming in around September time, at least down here in Miami. So I haven't smoked anything brand new that I could tell you off the bat is tremendous. I do have a lot of favorites, though. I always go back to the cigar. If you want a genuinely good medium-bodied Connecticut, I always go with the Rose of Sharon by Southern Draw. Tremendous cigar.
I just had that the other day.
Yes, phenomenal. There's a lot. The Huehuense, which means the wise man, they came out with a Maduro not too long ago, which is also relatively creamy and still carries its strength that the regular Huehuense, the Habano, has. Love that one as well. An interesting one is I actually am a huge fan of the Fat Bottom Betty.
Okay.
Interesting, right? I'm not the biggest fan per se of flavors, although to each their own. However, I do like the notion of what they did with the pipe tobacco. I think it was tremendously done. Granted, I'm not a big 60 ring gauge smoker. I know a lot of individuals are, but even then, that cigar was relatively flavorful, and that's flavored artificial flavors aside. I mean, it just carried its own sense of nuance that really brought something to the table. I believe. I can go on and on, in all honesty.
And nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of good stuff out there, and it just
Oh
seems
yeah,
that the quality, as of late, is not slowing down anytime soon. There's a lot of brands, but there's a lot of quality as well to go along with that quantity.
it's tremendous now, and I think that's something really cool to see.
Oh, sorry, I had to sneeze. Oh, jeez.
You all right?
Yeah, I had to sneeze for a second. Okay,
All right.
we're good. Real quick, I just wanted to say thank you to Adam for joining us. And Archie brings out another question. Um, during the blending and the extraction process, how many cigars did you guys go through till you finally decided on the finalization of the blend? And I'm going to add on to this question. How did you decide on which sizes you would go with?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, in relation to how many cigars, so there were in total 12 blends that we ended up going through. But during these 12 blends, it was about a good half a year worth of a process of smoking back and forth and back and forth. I would say number three of the first four blends was the initial baseline because it carried that the Corojo binder. So I was smoking that one a good amount. I went through about 2 bundles worth of that one alone because I genuinely like the flavor and I really wanted to add more nuance to that specific blend. So going down the line, the last blends were the experimental ones, and this is where the Vitolas come in. In total, I'd say we roughly anyway between all of us, especially me included, I smoked about, I want to say 45 to 50 before I came to the conclusion that this was the one. And in relation to the Vitolas, same thing. So during the experimental blends, that's when we came into the filler, and we added that extra little nuance to be had with the sliver, and we also added some extra Pennsylvania broadleaf, some for the extra kick in terms of strength and so forth. But during that process, I was looking at the initial blends. We finally decided on what we wanted, and my grandfather says, "Do you want to keep this as traditional as we always do?" So Robusto, Toro, Gordo. And I said, you know what? I want a cigar that, although Gordo, technically, I want it to fit everybody's palate, bring something new to the table. And we've had this Doble Perfecto size, the mold anyway, sitting in our factory. We've used it for a lot of other companies, but never for anything within our lines. And I was like, you know what? Let's give this one a go. I'm going ahead and create this blend with this Vitola, and who knows? Maybe it's a home run and maybe it's not. I kid you not, gentlemen. I was there that day early morning. My grandfather brought 4. And I got to the shoulder after lighting it up when the finalized product was created, and I got so giddy. I had the enormous smile on my face. I was sprinting around the backyard. I was having a time of my life. I mean, it was a damn good smoke, one that I was extremely excited about. And my grandfather says, so that's the one. I was like, this is going to be the one. And that's how we added it in. We also wanted to keep the Robusto relatively traditional to Cuban tradition in relation to my grandfather passing on the torch to me. That was a huge endeavor personally. I owe the utmost to him for that. And because of that, I wanted to make a 4 3/4 by 54 size ring gauge in relation to that Robusto. So tad bit smaller, not too much off, but there is a distinct difference in relation to the tobacco and how it's packed inside. Because even though that small dimension isn't to be found, it does still make a huge difference, folks. Fun fact. Same thing with the bigger blends. And in relation to the Double Perfecto, it is tapered on both ends. It is a 6 by 58, and then you have your classic total size, which is your 6 by 50.
Perfect.
Because that's a universal smoke.
Oh heck yeah, I can do. I honestly, any of those sizes is up my wheelhouse. I don't think there's any sizes other than I think the 60 ring gauges. Sometimes I'm not so big on those, but there's still quite a few out there that work at that size, and I have no issue. And I understand why people enjoy them. But there's something to be said about that smaller Robusto with that flavor profile. It just seems to enhance what you're experiencing. It's why I kind of like Lanceros a lot too, the Petite Coronas. Those smaller cigars are nothing to scoff at. I mean, people think in terms of with their eyes. They see what they're getting. It's like when you get a big meal versus something that looks very decadent and small. You're gonna be surprised with how amazing your experiences is versus time length.
Oh yeah.
It's just one of those things. Like, do you want a long experience or do you want the best possible experience? And sometimes that shorter time of smoking is going to be better than that, 2-hour smoke.
Yeah.
I, for example, when I used to work on the retail side of things back here in Miami, I was very big on cigarillos, mostly because I was pressed for time. I didn't have the opportunity to smoke a plethora of cigars. I wanted to enjoy it, at the very least, take it home and smoke it on a very relaxed, clean palate if I could. So I started diving more into the Petite Coronas of the world, the nubs, for example, also the little guys. And all that being said, I come to find out that my favorite Vitola, personally speaking, is a Lancero. We do make a 7 by 43. It's called the Flaco, named after my skinny butt. But truth be told, I found out that I love that size. And I don't know per se if it's because the wrapper really hits you or because you can genuinely feel the transition on a good cigar, especially if it's just a clean break in relation towards it not being plugged. If you have a damn good Lancero, it's phenomenal. It's a hell of an experience. It smokes, I want to say about, at least I can anyways, it smokes about the same time as much as a Toro. I'm jumping all over the place here, but what I'm trying to get to is you're completely right. In relation to the smaller guys or even the skinnier guys, they're nothing to scoff at. They each bring something new and different to the table. You just might not know it just yet up until you've smoked, let's say, 5 or 10 of these same things.
Oh, heck yeah. Definitely agree with that. And you can, not to try to push sales, but buy one of each size and maybe you'll see something different, just try them all out before you decide like, oh, I'm going to stick with just the Toro on these guys. An easy one to point out to you is your Oliva Serie Milanio you love so much. All the different sizes really do hit in different ways. And I think that's pretty much available. If everyone, you can I know a lot of these guys in the comments right now. You've all tried that cigar, so it's just an easy thing to point to. But that's not different from the same to go with your boutique lines. If you see a
Yeah,
new one that you like, try all the sizes. If you have access to all of them, try them out.
yeah. It's
And
it's
Adam
it's very
asked
important.
a good question here. Maybe you can touch on this because I'm not exactly sure.
A long one.
It says that when a cigar is released here in the U.S., uh, why does it take a while to get over to the UK?
Wow. So the reason being, I would say, is regulation. So our cigars currently are in the UK, but you had to file through a hefty amount of paperwork, a very, very hefty amount of paperwork before you can get it through those doors. And truth be told, how it works is if you were to go on ahead and take it over there without any knowledge of these regulations in question, so like measurements, outline artworks, even a secondary bands that's bland, even that just tells you where it's at. I think the reason being is because of those regulations. It makes it a lot more difficult to have boutique brands like myself or even some of the bigger guys make a splash in those markets. If you don't follow protocol, they will literally confiscate and smoke it all themselves. It's happened to us on a few occasions. We learned the hard way, and this was before the brands. This was just when we were making cigars for other individuals. And even then, we've had a lot of angry phone calls because of which. But at the end of the day, if the fine print wasn't read, it's very, very hard to do business internationally. So that could be it.
That makes perfect
Mhm.
sense.
And do you think maybe it's anything to do with the fact that there's a lot of Cuban cigars over in the UK that they smoke, and it's actually really difficult to get some U.S. cigars in there because
Yeah,
all they smoke is Cuban. Well, not all they smoke, but a lot of what they smoke is predominantly Cuban.
indeed. It's funny you bring this up as well because I was talking with my father about this not too long ago, about 2 days ago, and it's interesting to note that there's an embargo, so to speak, in relation to the states and Cuba, right? In relation to it being lifted, I agree with you, and I think a big reason is not only just the regulation, but also the notion that that is their market now. Cuban cigars do very well, very, very well internationally, and shopkeepers over there at the end of the day are watching their bottom dollar. They know that a lot of tourists come by, a lot of them of which are from the States, and it's very, very difficult to get your hands on a legitimately good Cuban. We have the same issue here in Miami all the time where you get your fake Cohibas down the street, a box going for $70 a pop, and then you realize maybe these aren't Cohibas. It's very, very hard to come across the authentic thing. So
But they have that glass top, and it looks so pretty, though.
it looks gorgeous. There's actually, if I'm not mistaken, somebody told me once that there is a way to tell whether they're authentic or not. I've yet to test it out. I haven't been to the UK in a few years. But that being said, I agree with you completely, Frank. I mean, I think personally speaking, they know their market. And if the Cuban cigars do extremely well over there, then why vary from that, you know, system? I mean, there would be no reason to do so, especially if you have to deal with all that paperwork.
Mhm,
When
mhm.
over from the Cuba over here to the UK, you probably don't have to deal with so much paperwork at all.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Makes sense.
And as you mentioned before, you are of Cuban descent. Uh,
Yes, sir.
so do you have a favorite Cuban cigar?
I do. I am a huge fan of Patagas. Really, anything within the Patagas line, I love. I was very big on the Monte Cristos, specifically the number two torpedoes. I love those. They were amazing, and they were selling like hotcakes way back in the day, especially on the international market. But I'd say Patagas is a tremendous, tremendous company. As a matter of fact, so those individuals, turns out their sons went to school with my grandfather forever ago. So they happen to know each other. They live down the same block at Pina del Rio, and all that aside, one of the very, very first cigars that I've ever smoked was a legitimate Batagas that was gifted to my grandfather. At that moment in time, I remember that we just got a new factory location. We increased in size, we had to. And during that process, they know each other, so he came on by to the DR to visit my grandfather, and sure enough, he gave him a couple authentic Batagas from Cuba. Um, Holy hell, I was hooked. I had my uncle in particular who has this odd connection through Switzerland bring in a bunch because of which, and then when I would go back and forth just smoking half the box within 2 days time, I mean, it was tremendous.
That's
I'm gonna
awesome.
agree with you on the
That's
Monte
awesome.
Cristo number two torpedo. I'm a big fan. My favorites include like the Monte Cristo Open Regatta. I love that one. Smaller cigar, but I love it. But the
Yes.
number two, I actually took one of them with me. I only had a couple, so I took one, to a wrap party for a movie that we had filmed.
Oh yeah.
And I brought 2 travel case with me. I had one travel case that only held 5 cigars. One of them was the Monte Cristo. I think I had a couple Opus in there, a couple higher end cigars for people that smoked cigars. And then the other travel case that held about 15, 20. And those were, cigars if they put down after 1 or 2 puffs, I wasn't going to get mad about it.
Okay.
Well, one of the ladies there, she's like, "Oh, I heard you have cigars." I was like, "Oh, yeah, they're in the room." She's like, "Can I go grab one?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And she comes out with the Monte Cristo #2. And then I see her clip it and I see her light it. And then she's like, "Oh, there's nothing like a good Monte Cristo." And I was like, "Oh, shit, she knows her stuff." All right, then. I'm glad someone's enjoying it, even if it's not me. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Monte Cristo #2. I think it's a fantastic Cuban cigar when you get a good one. 'Cause you
When you get
can
a
get
good-
some that are not rolled very well, or maybe whoever was rolling it was a Friday night and they wanted to get out of the factory. But in general, I think they're a fantastic smoke. I really do like them a lot.
Oh heck yeah.
as well.
Now, as you said though, the family has been having the brand for the last. It's been 5 years, about 5 years,
Yes, sir.
and before that, been in the tobacco industry for quite a long time. Did you know growing up that you wanted to be in cigars?
Mm.
No. I had a very, very different way of what I wanted to do career-wise. Out of all things, I was a sucker for dinosaurs. I still am, very much a nerd. And I wanted to be a paleontologist for like the longest time. I just had no real means of understanding how to be a paleontologist at the time because I was so young. And at this point in time, I was experiencing the factory. We would go every summer just for vacation and also to visit my grandfather. But truth be told, we'd go into the factory also to just see the operation. Everything else aside, from that point going forward, I still don't necessarily know. Or rather, better said, I know what I want to do now in relation to this industry. I adore this industry. There really is nothing like it. It's one of those things where I wish I had a more, I guess, not really hands-on approach, but I had a better understanding of when I was younger, knowing that I would enjoy this as much as I do. Started smoking cigars at the age of 17, and I think, if anything else, as early as that sounds, might have been a little bit late in my case, considering the factory, considering the heritage. As of now, I'm currently taking my gap year. And that being said, with my gap year, are you guys okay? Sorry, I don't know if it's on my end or okay. I am taking my gap year currently. I graduated from FIU as of last year, and I want to jump into law. So the reason I want to jump into law, though, is because I'd like to bring something back to our family business. Truth be told, whatever regulations I can study, FDA regulations, administrative agency law, even corporate or international law, whatever it takes, really, I'd love to bring that information back to our business because at the end of the day, it would make a lot of things more efficient down the line. So I think I'm in this industry to stay, truth be told. It's, like I said, nothing quite like it.
No, that doesn't take away from the fact that you can still study paleontology, like on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very interesting topic there. I think, especially when you see in the cigar industry, whenever you sit down in the lounge, the common denominators, everyone loves their cigar. But when you have those other eclectic interests and backgrounds, it makes everything even better. It makes it more deep connection with everybody. Now, my important question here is, which is your favorite of the Jurassic Park
that was my
Jurassic World
question.
movies? Then
That was my next question too, bro.
I know this is difficult. I apologize, but this is important.
Yeah, you caught.
And if it says Jurassic Park 3, guys, the interview is now over.
The thing is, I love the Spinosaurus too. I don't. Okay, all those are the original ones, not Jurassic World. The original Jurassic Parks are a classic. They're iconic.
Oh yeah.
Wow. In all honesty, I'd have to agree. I think number 3. I'd put number 2 on the back of the list. I'd put number 3, number 1, and the second being the first Jurassic Park. I think that's a proper, segue into all of that. Just like I said, growing up, I was a nerd, and having the plethora of cool creatures that they brought in during Jurassic Park 3, the different ones, not just your typical T-Rex or that really it made my geek meter just go insane. I was having the time of my life watching that movie when it came out. I mean, I saw it back to back. I want to say maybe 3 times over.
Mm-hmm.
It's tremendous. So
I'm with you 100%. I love that movie. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about over here because I think the first one's still my favorite, but that third one was awesome. And I don't even mind the second one. I know it got a little weird with I think there was a girl doing gymnastics and kicking a dinosaur or something. I can't remember. But
yeah, that was the thing that really it's a dinosaur at the end of the day. I don't think a kick is really going to do too much, but that's fine. I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, but
Now-
that was the one. It was the second.
and-
Yeah, I was like,
And you guys might be a little bit young for this. I know you were right at the end of it, but seeing those movies in a drive-in was an experience like nothing else. Yeah,
that was cool.
I wish.
I don't think you
wish
guys
I
got
had
to
that
experience
shot.
drive-ins like I did.
We call it this old guy over
you're
here.
right.
Talk about dinosaurs, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then we did have a good question here. Where do you think the current cigar regulations federally are going to go? Do you believe the courts will strike them down? Now, we did get a couple of good wins in the past year. There's more regulations coming up. You know, I hear a lot of talk again about the plain bans, plain boxes stuff going on like they have over, I believe, in Australia and Canada, I think it is.
Canada, they have that. They have it in New Zealand. They
Yeah.
have it in Australia. There's a lot of locations in which they have that plain olive green band. It has to be a specific color too, which is kind of. But to have all the cigars look the same, I think, or rather, my hope, better said, is that any regulations coming forth within this industry keep on getting kicked down the road like a can. Because, truth be told, I mean, this is a phenomenal industry. And that being said, a lot of South American countries, Latin American countries, whatever the case may be, thrive off tobacco production. And a lot of the workers in our factory are pure, authentic Dominican, and that is literally how they put food down on the table. If regulations come to it where everybody is struggling, I don't see who really wins at the end of the day. Making all the cigars look the same, that's great. So what's really the separating factor then? It's the price point. So, okay, but you still don't really know what the hell you're smoking. Interestingly enough, in New Zealand, what they do is, no, better said, is it New Zealand or Australia? It could be both. You'll walk in, they give you a brochure. You can't go all the way in to see the humidor or the product or anything like that. But it's almost like contraband in a way, because they'll put whatever your purchase is in a black bag, literally, I think like a Whole Foods, like a Publix bag, something like that. You can't see anything in that bag. And then you just walk away with the product, and you have to smoke it at home secretly. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, cigars bring people together. It's a conversation piece.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're looking through it, there's one thing to look at a cigar through a catalog, and there's another to do it and actually have it in your hands and be like, this looks damn good.
Yes.
So I think,
And I mean, already right there, just with that whole labeling thing, you're taking away work from the artists, from the print shops, from the box manufacturers that decorate the boxes and print them. I mean, if they try to get rid of cigars, cigarettes included, obviously, pipe tobacco, all that, I mean, it's not like these farms can just, okay, well, let's grow something else right now. Then that's going to take years of, of getting the soil ready again, of training these people to do something different, of finding a new way of collecting whatever they're going to harvest, and then where they're going to sell it. I mean, that can devastate an entire economy if that's what they're going to do. On some countries like Nicaragua, the DR, that would just devastate them.
Yeah, 100%. I really do believe that, if anything else, regulation-wise, I think the next, and I'm not too sure of this, but it's based off my own perception, I think the next thing that might potentially be struck down are actually online sales. And the reason I say that is because you have companies like CI, for example, creating brick and mortars. All of a sudden, they were doing perfectly fine for a plethora of years, and all of a sudden, brick and mortars are showing face. And this is with a lot of other online companies. So that might be the next thing in the work that's gone beyond just flavored cigars, because that markets to kids and whatnot. We've all heard that one going back and forth. It's almost an iconic.
Real quick, though, to touch on that, what are your thoughts on that? We were just discussing this the other day, and it's like, how does it market to kids when you're not allowed to market tobacco on TV, where kids are watching stuff. They were talking about the what was it, the Rocky Road or the Munchies from Riste?
Yeah.
But
Yes, sir.
the only way they're going to see it is if they're in a lounge or in a brick and mortar, and you have to be 21 or older to get in there, so they're not going to see it there. The only chance they're going to get to see it is if they go through their mom or dad's humidor and they happen to glance at it.
Yeah.
I mean, how exactly is it marketing towards kids? So before we move on, what are your thoughts on that?
On a personal note, I do find it to be a little bit absurd. I agree with you, and frankly, you literally hit everything to the T. I mean, if you're walking into a shop and you're a young individual, chances are before you can even go through that door, you have to be 21 regardless. So you're eligible to smoke. You're eligible to drink at that point. You're eligible to do what you please with the hard-earned money you ended up making. And although it could be a little bit intimidating, I don't think, if anything else, it's like taking away the gateway to a lot of individuals in this industry that don't really know where to begin. It's much easier to start off with an acid blondie, right? Something like that, and that notion, than going on ahead and starting off with a Padron 80 right off the bat, especially if you don't know how to smoke. It's proper etiquette. So I don't think that, truth be told, cigars are really marketed towards children. If anything else, some of them are marketed to young adults, yes, but it's supposed to be eye-catching in that regard and stand out. So a lot of those bands, like the Cookie Monster, for example, I got a crack out of looking at that band. I found it hilarious, and the cigar is pretty damn good in my opinion. So I find it to be absurd to go ahead and say that you're removing cigars entirely, or rather all of the flavors, all of the crazy bands, all of this different artistic work, just for the sake of not having younger individuals smoke. Because at the end of the day, the younger folks coming in are going to be the experienced smokers way the hell down the line. It doesn't stop with my father's generation or my grandfather's generation. I mean, it's a traditional thing. You're not smoking a pack of Marlboros after winning the state championships. You're lighting up a smoke. You know what I mean? It's
100%.
yeah. So I find it to be absurd, Frankie. Truth be told, I do.
And again, I think you touched on a good point too. Yeah, sure, the Cookie Monster, the Rocky Road, the acid, some of the flavor stuff, they're made to attract the younger smoker that's just getting into smoking. As a way to get their feet wet. Then okay, I've had a couple of these acids, but what do you have that might be more traditional? That's a little sweeter. Okay, well let me show you this, and then they progress. I don't think it's towards kids. I think it's towards those new smokers, just to get them used to it, and then they move on from there.
It's very educational. I think. I really do believe it's a super big educational standpoint. Especially considering that, considering you'll look at it's intimidating. You'll look at a wall of cigars. You haven't tried a single one on that shelf besides just the flavors in the bottom corner, and you don't know where to gravitate to because you want to start getting into the natural stuff, but you're too afraid to say, okay, is this gold gonna, like the Rosa Sharon, for example, which is a little bit misleading considering the Connecticut, most individuals would believe it's relatively light, but it carries its body, it carries its weight.
Oh, yeah.
And if I was an inexperienced smoker and I hear going for gold is the most mild and I accidentally pick up that cigar, I'm not picking up a chest kicker and I'm spending the rest of my time with the cigar half finished and me by the toilet side trying not to heave. I mean, you know what I mean? I think it's very, very educational, and I hopefully hope that it doesn't go away anytime soon. I think it's a huge standpoint for the future generations coming in and allows them the opportunity to not only just try something completely different, but also to dive into an enormous industry where the culture is top-notch and the individuals are phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. And you definitely touch on a really important thing there. Starting off, years ago, I mean, I had those moments where I'm like, oh, you know what? That cigar looks good. I don't need to ask any questions right now. And then, oh no, it's the cold sweats. I'm gonna go to the restroom and just throw some water on my face. I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. All right, just give me a little time. Just give me a little time.
Exactly.
So it's really nice to have situations like we have right now. Like we're online, we get to talk to people, and I think the average smoker is a lot more educated as far as what goes into their cigars, what to expect, strength levels, misconceptions are kind of removed that way, and those beginners, like you speak, they speak and start with the acid blondie or something sweet, and they can move gradually up to the natural stuff a little easier. Or if you want to stick with those, totally fine. I get it. I know a lot of guys who are been smoking for years, like, you know what, I still like my acid blondie. Totally fine. That's cool too. But it's so nice to be able to have these moments, especially through the internet, because it would be very hard for us to like, well, Alec, let's meet you somewhere in the Midwest so we can meet halfway to do the show. But no, we could just do this right here, right now. I mean, it doesn't replace being live in the cigar lounge, but it's so nice to be able to have these moments and really discuss what is, like you said, a great industry full of really hardworking people, traditional or traditions being passed down through generations. And I would hate to see that diminish because of some of these laws. And I wanted to touch on something else you spoke on too a second ago about the specific colors. You said there was like a off green color that they had on
Yeah,
some of them.
it's like an olive. I'd say olive. It's like an olive green. It's, how would I put it? It's a boring coloration, and I guess that's why they have that color, so to speak, because it doesn't necessarily catch your eye. It looks like a regular It looks like a band, just literally all green, no design, no nothing. And they have it on everything. Like it's on everything.
See, that actually goes into I think Disneyland does this. They might have it. They might have it like on copyright, but when they do construction in Disneyland, there is a color called either go away green or look away green that they use to paint things that they don't want you to look at, and it's almost
Oh, really?
imperceptible to your eyes. Yeah, and they will literally paint either their walls to like hide new construction or just fencing that they have to have up, but they don't want you to look at it. So I'm almost like curious to know if those colors are similar.
Yeah, it's an eye trick that they use, and they spend a lot of money to come up with that specific hue, because your eye doesn't catch it. So they could be building a new castle somewhere, and you won't notice it because of that color.
Sometimes I just don't notice things though too,
Yeah,
so that's not
yeah.
even on them. That's my own fault.
I'm going to go back to the whole flavored thing and touch on that again. I'm assuming the answer is no, but please correct me if I'm wrong, and everybody else in the comments, tell me the state that you're in. Um, have there been any bans as far as flavors go? Because our hometown of Ventura
Mm,
banned flavored cigars, and a city not too far away, Calabasas, actually banned smoking altogether in the city limits.
yeah,
Oh, no
So
kidding.
you can't smoke anywhere.
your own home.
I mean, you cannot be in your backyard having a cigar, because if someone calls the cops, you will be cited.
That's okay. Well, first off, that's ridiculous. Holy
Yeah.
hell. I didn't know that. In relation to flavors being banned, to my knowledge, flavors have not been banned as of yet. Miami is still full and thriving in relation towards the flavors. All of Florida is, for the most part, South Florida. So you can still find a good amount of flavors here. And truth be told, I'm pretty sure Jonathan Drew and company would be fairly upset if acid was taken out.
Oh,
I was just talking about Jonathan Drew earlier today. A tremendous guy, by the way. So shout out to Jonathan. But that being said, no, thankfully, no flavors have been removed here. And hopefully going down the line, they won't be. That's the goal.
yeah, no, 100%. It's just again, like you said, like there's the Fat Bottom Betty for you. There's a couple flavors that I enjoy myself. It's not my first go to or anything, but I wouldn't want to take something away from somebody else just because I don't care for it, or
Mm-hmm.
just because it wouldn't really affect me as much doesn't mean it's not going to affect the guy sitting next to me.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, at least in my opinion, and I think a lot of cigar smokers would agree with that. It the logic behind it does not fit their narrative in my head, and I don't know how to justify it or try to see it from their point of view. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
At all.
So let's get back to Casa Cuevas cigars. I think we kind of got off topic there. Good conversation, though, I will say.
There was a
Um,
dinosaur.
Now, you guys have the Connecticut, the Habano, the Maduro. We have your cigar, Sangre Nuevo. We have the I forget how to say. How do you say it? Sledgehammer.
The Mandaria.
There we go. And then you have the new white label one that came out last PCA.
Last PCA. Yes, sir.
Okay,
That
so
was Hachimato.
six cigars in the lineup altogether, or seven?
Actually, there's also the Reserva series as well, which come in a natural and a Maduro. So in total, we have, as of now, we're sitting pretty at about 8 lines in total.
Okay.
Nice. Very
Fantastic. So let's say you were to take 4 cigars out of your line, and you're gonna have a day of smoking Casa Cuevas. Where would you start? What would you reach for second? What would you have third, and what would you end the night with?
Okay. So this might actually sound a little bit weird, so to speak. I would actually start off initially with our Maduro.
Nice.
Our core line Maduro is extremely creamy, medium bodied, and it's full of flavor. So we use Mexican San Andres for the wrapper, and it adds this little bit of a semi-sweetness to it, especially the Colombian filler on the inside really amps up that creaminess to it. I love that cigar. That is my morning smoke personally. From the second point, I would go on ahead and say at that point the Habano. I am a sucker for a little bit of spice, not overwhelming amount of spice. But even then, that Habano is tremendous. And interestingly enough, the Habano came completely by accident. So when we initially had the first 3 core lines, we were starting to create everything, and we didn't know where we wanted to go Habano-wise. We were already created the Connecticut, and the Maduro was the very, very first prototype that we ever created. So a roller one day accidentally put a Ecuadorian Habano wrapper on the binder and filler of what was supposed to be a core line Maduro. My grandfather smoked it, asked, "What the heck is this?" And he went back to the roller. The roller said, "Oh, I might have made a mistake." And sure enough, my grandfather wrote down what happened and took it to my father. At this point, I wasn't even in the industry as a whole. And anyway, long story short, they tried to find different thing. They're like, maybe this doesn't work, maybe it does, maybe it didn't, and that sort of thing. And then at the end of the day, they're two completely distinct and different cigars with very, very different flavor profiling. So the Habano is tremendous. I always tend to smoke the Maduro and then the Habano right after, just to catch that difference. Plus the flavor is just amazing. I'd say Sangre Nueva would actually be my third currently in line. I would normally go on ahead and say the Sledgehammer. I do love the Sledgehammer a lot. It does carry a lot more potency, and I figure by my third stick, I'd have already finished having lunch and whatnot, but Sangre Nueva just brings something new to the table. You got a lot of this roasted notes, almost roasted nuts in a way, that sort of thing. Very medium-bodied, consistent all the way through, and to boot, the smell is just, it's amazing. It became my dad's go-to, which for him used to be the Sledgehammer. So interestingly enough, now my father literally brought home 4 extra that we have of Sangre Nueva just for him to smoke alone tonight. I mean, he loves them. And lastly, I'd finish it all off with the Connecticut. I am a sucker for our Connecticut. It is a smoker's Connecticut, works great with coffee, but the thing is, you could smoke it at any point in time of the day. It's an everyday smoke. I mean, I love that damn cigar. I have brokers in particular that ask for an extra box whenever I send them car stock, literally because that's all they go through. So they don't want to give their merchandise away to fellow shops. They rather smoke all the Coraline Connecticut's themselves. It is a damn good smoke. I love finishing the night with those in particular because it's very smooth, very flavorful, and it's not like you're just puffing straight air, so to speak.
I definitely get that. Yeah, there's plenty of good Connecticut's out there, but they tend to be a little bit more on the lighter side, and that's totally fine. A good way to start your day, or a good way to bring someone into something more natural. But when you get a Connecticut that's ramped up on the flavor, maybe it's a little bit more strength there, maybe that more medium than the mild, it's a whole different ball game, and it's wonderful. I think you're absolutely right. The Casa Cuevas fits those parameters perfectly. It's an everyday, again, like you said, any time of day too. That's an excellent way to put it.
And Jeff here asked a good question. Jeff is our neighbor to the north. Uh, where can he find them? Can you find them in Sacramento or Modesto? Do you know by any chance?
So as of right now, to my knowledge, because California is so big, I don't believe we're in any of those areas at the moment. I know we're over in Morgan Hill. We are working our way into Glendora. We're in a couple different locations. I'd have to honestly pull up the list, but because of PCA, we're now found in a lot more areas in California, and we're also still working on sending things out. So a lot of accounts will be opening up, actually one of which is in Sacramento, fun fact. I'm not quite sure which one. I know my California broker knows to a T. She was the one that wrote up the order that day. But truth be told, we will be hitting Sacramento soon. I promise you, Jeff.
That is excellent.
If I were to guess, it'd probably be Sacramento Cigar Club. They're known for bringing in a lot of great stuff. So, and I love that shop. I think it's great. They've got a beautiful humidor over there. So hopefully we'll see them there. That way, next time I'm there, I can pick up a couple. But that's a great question, Jeff. It is hard to get cigars here in California with the regulations and the taxes and whatnot. It is difficult. So being able to get into California is quite an accomplishment in and of itself.
Oh yeah,
thank you. We initially started biting the other end because you guys have that high tax rate. So essentially, what we're doing is we're keeping tabs of it. We ended up getting the license in order to actually go and distribute and whatnot. It makes everything easier all across the board. And ever since we've done that, which was about a year and a half ago, more or less. A lot more shops have been bringing us in. They're more comfortable in terms of doing business. It really helped all across the board.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's a different beast over here. I mean, I do love California, but I wish we kind of solve some of those issues a little bit better. Doesn't always seem very friendly towards business, minded people, but at the end of the day, it's still home, and there are a lot of cigar smokers here. So I hope to see you out in California someday. Will we be seeing you at TPE? Will you be over there yourself? Okay, good. I want to see that. And
will you guys be at the Heritage Cigar Festival?
No. So we've toyed around with the idea actually on multiple occasions. We've also toyed around with the idea of Intertabac. We believe personally that we should go on ahead and focus solely on not only just making a little bit more of a splash in terms of the areas that we are in, just to really strengthen our location and our territories, but also going down the line, looking into expanding to, for example, Heritage or Intertabac. I feel as if we were to go in now, so to speak, we have a decent amount in our line where we can make something tremendous out of it. But that being said, we are also just a two-man show. So all in all, we are the packaging department, shipping, janitorial staff. I mean, we do it all, and we're constantly sprinting around back and forth. It'd be something that we'd have to legitimately kind of collaborate with one another, actually sit down and brainstorm and see if it's even doable, if it's possible. We have a lot of events coming up that we do need to go to, things of that nature. But going down the line, I believe we will be in Heritage. We've been very much considering it, as a matter of fact. So
Very nice, very nice. Now this is technically still cigar related, I would say, and it's been brought up in the comments a lot. People are talking about booze, and they are adamant on both sides that cigar pairings with alcohols is wonderful. Do you have any go-to spirits that you enjoy? Maybe not just with your own cigars, but just in cigars in general. Is there anything that you tend to drink more of? That, like, I really enjoy my bourbon or my whiskey, whatever it might be.
oh yeah, of course. So I've been trying to get a little more into Scotch and whiskeys as of late because of my father. So I like a good Glenlivet. I love a good Oban. Oban 14 is tremendous. But I always find myself smoking any cigar, really, a nice cigar, anything that carries a little bit of spice, but also is relatively bodied in relation towards old fashions. I love old fashions. So I tend to have a lot of Maker's Mark. But lately I've been gravitating a lot towards Crown. So dark rum, dark liquor, better said. And something else that I tend to drink quite a bit and pair up very much, especially with Casa Cuevas, is Zacapa rum. It's one of my grandfather's favorites. And every time he's here in the States, we'll go on ahead, we'll have a little glass and we'll smoke cigars and talk business whenever we can, and then go back to family. So I'd say those two are my top tier. I'd say I'm getting more into whiskeys now. Oban is tremendous personally. I love it with the Mandaria. It really brings out the nice spice note. I love it. And Zacapa. Oh, Zacapa is just it's amazing. It's so sweet. Oh, it's great. Sorry. It's been a while since I've had Zacapa. I'll be honest with that. My grandfather tends to be in the factory 2 weeks straight, and then he'll stay for about a weekend and then go back and so forth.
Excellent.
I like where your head's at, though. It makes sense to me. Now, speaking of old fashions, though, have you had the old fashioned over at the Monte Cristo in Vegas? They have their lounge over in Caesars, right? In Caesars.
Yeah,
in Caesars. They make probably one of the best old fashions in Vegas, and
Okay.
I mean, you could smoke there too. So next time we see you at PCA or TPE for that matter, we'll have to break off for a moment. We'll go have some old fashions over in that lounge because it is worth it. It's worth a little trek to the side.
I'm all for it. Quite literally, count me in. I'm all for trying new old fashions.
Oh, heck yeah. Now, being the young guy, though, you're going to have to do most of the drinking for pretty much everyone. I'm assuming they just like, you know what, you're young. I'm going to hand that to you a little bit. And I have gotten that role too many times. And now that I finally hit 30, it's like, I don't have to do that anymore, right? I can just sip on something and relax and enjoy myself. But for that time, I will drink whatever you're drinking, sir, all right? Whatever you pick, I'm on board.
All right, guys, we are coming up to the hour mark, so we're going to go ahead and call it a show. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, everybody for asking such fantastic questions
100%.
and being a part of the show with us today. Again, Alec, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us and let us in on a little bit of your background and the background of your family. Absolute pleasure having you on board today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'd love to make this again. This is tremendous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely having you on again. As soon as we can, we'll get you back on here. All right, brother. Is there anything you want to make sure everybody knows before we let you go, though?
Please, if you haven't already, please give Casa Cuevas a go. We don't want to be the only thing you smoke. We just want to be a part of your repertoire. At the very least, pick us up once a week. That's our goal. And we are also the middleman because we own the factory. So should you have any problems with Casa Cuevas, tell your local shop owner. He'll contact us and we'll handle it right away. Promise you.
That's perfect. That's quality right there. And all right, everybody, you all have a good one. We'll be back Friday. We have the Boutique Cigar Expo on then.
Yep.
And Alec, thank you so much for joining us again. And definitely can't wait to have you back on, brother.
Thank you, guys.
All right, everybody, you all have a great Wednesday, and we will talk to you all very soon.
Yep. See you guys.